Let's begin by looking at the sort. When we sort data here, we don't want to sort just one column because we're going to consider this data to be related. In other words, this row, all of row 3, all 4 of these elements, 5 of these elements are the same, are related. Let's begin by sorting our data. First, we have to consider what our data is. In this case, our data we're going to think of as records, and each record is all the related information in each row. In other words, in this example, taken from the file called pivot table, that's a sample file provided by our book. In this row, this maple syrup, the quarter being 1, the sales being 5,000, is related to Jones, the salesperson, and the region, which is north. If we were to sort this column, we would have to make sure that for this value north, each of the other values in that table or in that record stay the same. So let's begin. We'll simply click on the A to Z and sort this selection. When I do that, did you notice that it flashed? It may not in this recording, but it did flash and include all of the other data. Let's check this. If I press Control Z, I want to see that I have 2 easts that are 3,000 and they belong to Smith. So now I'll look for those. Here's the first, and here's the second. So we've done our first sort, and we've recognized that everything can be sorted. So we'll redo our sort. We'll click A to Z, and we have all of our information sorted. If I wanted to sort by salesperson, I've noticed that salesperson is the same as my region. If I wanted to sort by the volume of sales, I can choose A to Z in this column as well. Let's look at another feature of sorting, and that is to sort by more than one column at a time. I want to sort by, well, by the product, and then I want to sort by the sales value. I want to find out from each product what salesman is selling the highest volume. So to do that, I'm going to use this other sort tool, and I notice I have my first layer is by sales. I'm going to change that to product, so I can choose which column by the column heading under sort by. Then the value to sort on, well, what I want to sort on is the value in the column A to Z. That will satisfy me. Then the next thing I want to do is add a level. In other words, a second level of sorting. So click Add Level. And now I'm going to sort by, what did I say? Sales, didn't I? So I'm going to sort by sales. And then I want to sort from the largest to the smallest. And I'll click OK. And indeed, I have for butterscotch, I see the top one is 6,000 by Mr. Jones. And under maple syrup, 20,000 by again, or Mr. Jones, and those are my 2 products. Did you notice in this display that this one butterscotch has no values beyond the name of the product? Originally in this database file when it was opened, that value, that butterscotch, was listed down here. It happened to be the last entry. It's included because it actually is connected or adjacent in an adjacent cell to the range. If values were outside this range, let's experiment with this. I'll put a 1, 2, 3, and of course you know where this is headed. If I continue this, I can make a series down. We'll just make a series that far. If I go back to this and I simply want to sort all values by sales, I can click on A to Z, and notice those values changed, but these cells did not. They stayed the same. That's because they're not adjacent to this range of cells. This range of cells being listed here. And also, it looks like my labels have sorted, which means I've sorted outside of my range. I've sorted outside of these numbers to include this. Let's look at that closer and see what might have caused that. So if I were to click A to Z, having this cell, the active cell in that column, it included, again, the very top line in this sort. Well, it turns out the range of cells did expand. That was the automated version. Let's undo that and put it back the way it was. It turns out that when you use this sort tool, we can define whether the top row has labels or not, has headers. But if there's an adjacent cell, it actually assumes that's part of the heading. So the workaround, at least the workaround for me, was to select this row and insert a row. So now, when I work with this range of cells, I'll select them. I can use my my sort tool. I will say yes, indeed, it does have headings at the top. That means these are now headings, and I can sort by those. And if I wanted to sort by just quarters, again, this is to set up my data table so that I can sort it again by sales and see what the results are going to be. Now, if I'm in this active cell and I sort A to Z, I notice it doesn't affect the column headings. So having this there changed what was determined to be the column heading. There's one more aspect of sort that we want to look at today, and that's to have a custom sort. I'd like to show all of my sales, anything that's 3,000 or more, and I think I'd like to have it show up by salesperson. So first sort it by 3,000 or more, then by salesperson. So I'm going to click sort, and this time the next feature we're going to look at that has to do with data tables is the subtotal feature. Now, I don't know if you've noticed that your view of the ribbon might be different than mine. I've chosen a format of height and width of this screen that limits what my ribbon will display, so the video looks better. I can click on subtotal, and from subtotal I'm going to choose what I want to group on. Now in this subtotal, this is my range. I can say at the change in each product, I want to find the count of, and I can do any column here because right now it's literally counting how many are there. So I'll just leave it at the default region and I'll click OK. Now if I do this, I already know this is going to create a problem, but we'll talk about that and we'll talk about its solution. I click OK, and indeed every change in region it says, or rather product, every change in product gives me the count. There were 2 butterscotches, so it tells me there are 2. Well, this is no way to count them up. There's got to be a better way. And have you predicted it already? So we're going to sort by product. So if I click sort, I'll choose to sort by product first. A to Z sounds fine to me. So now I have all my products. This product I'm going to drop because it has no data. And now I'm going to count how many regions are within each product. Let's see what that looks like using our subtotal tool. So I'll click on subtotal. Oh, it looks like if I select a row, that creates a problem. If I select a cell within the range, now it should work. Subtotal, it did pick out the right range. Change in product, the count of regions. I'll click OK. And now, under butterscotch, I have 16 regions. And in maple syrup, I have also 16. Handy how that works. Next, we're going to change our subtotal to not do the count, but rather to add things up. And the only thing we can add, really, that makes sense would be the sales. So I'm going to go back to subtotals. I'm going to change this. I'll leave it to product. Change the function to sum. That'll add everything up. And we're going to sum the value in sales. And I'll click OK. And now we can find that butterscotch, the total, is 30,450. Okay. Let's find the average for the sales. Can you do that? Try that yourself first. Click pause, and then see how that turns out. Click pause now. Did it turn out? Well, let's see if you do the same way I will. I'll click subtotal. I'll go back to sum, and I'll change it to average. And we still want to get the average of sales, so I'll click OK, and the average, mine, is 1903.125. for butterscotch. Okay, well, super. That concludes the subtotal portion of this. Let's look at one more tool. This tool is the filter. We have to remove subtotals to do that. So I'm going to say remove all, which will take away our subtotals. So now we're back to our data table. And in using the filter, we can apply the filter regardless of how things are sorted, which is handy. So if I were to simply sort this back again by sales, then, so I have my product mixed, my salesperson mixed, and so on. If I want to find out how much East and West had together total, I could use a filter to drop out or drop out East and West. Let's try that. First, we'll click on the filter icon to apply filter. It will add these controls to each of these column headings. Under these controls, I can go back to or open this list box and there unselect North and South. When I click OK, those will be left out of the count. If I go to the bottom of my column and ask it for a sum, and I'll do that manually, equal to sum, open a parenthesis, I will select the range of cells, another parenthesis, and now I have the sum. I can also do the average of that same range of cells, making sure I don't include the sum that I've calculated earlier. So I can do a number of things there. Now, what if I wanted to find the number, just the number of salespeople that sold 3,000 or more? How can I do that? Well, first I have to find which filter is applied now, and I can see by this control that this is where the filter is applied. I'll tell it to clear the filtering from that region. And what did I say, 3,000 or more? If I open this list box, I could uncheck these, unless there are a lot of them. If there's a lot of values here, that would take a long time. There's got to be another way to filter, and there is. Under number filters, because that's what we're looking at, numbers, I can do a custom filter. And in this case, I can either write it out a custom filter or choose greater than or equal to. Well, that's really what I'm after, greater than or equal to. But we're going to use custom filter to achieve the same thing, just so you're familiar with how to use a custom filter. So I'll select custom filter, and I'll choose the logic I want, which is in this case greater than or equal to. And I will put in here, I think I can open and find one of the values that's there. That's handy if you want to write out data. Or I can simply type it in this case 3,000. I'll press enter or OK, and it's done. So I only see those elements that are 3,000 or greater. If I want to sort this by salesperson, I can still sort it. So now I see that Ms. Gonzalez has sequentially 4, 5, and 6,000 in sales. Jones 3, 4, 5. That means that the 4 quarters that Jones sales, she got all 4 quarters over 3,000. And who has the least? Looks like Keller. So I think I should talk to this salesman. Okay, filters. So we can filter for individual things, individual elements, to either include them or not include them by simply using the regular filter and checking or unchecking these boxes. Or we can use number filters and choose a custom filter or a filter that's been pre-made. We should try one more filter before we go away. We're going to use top 10 and see how that works. This now represents the top 10 sales, or in this case. And that concludes working with data using sort, filter, and subtotal. Other tools under data will be looked at later.